with 10 councillors. We look at the number of wards. So again, this is a different proposal to the status quo. We currently have 3 wards. The new proposal is to go to 2 wards. And when you look at why they've done that, it was really about saying, well, okay, at the end of the day, do we need to start considering communities of interest? Pataru and Tirau, both reliant or very heavily weighted toward the dairying industry. They're only 9 kilometres apart. Yes, they do have different personalities, I guess, as little towns in terms of Tirau being a destination town. But they are very closely aligned in a lot of areas too. The Waihau catchment runs through both of them. So there are a lot of similarities, while there are differences. So at the end of the day, when you look at the wards, the other issue, of course, is that when you have 3 wards in Tirau having only 1 councillor, if that councillor, for whatever reason, isn't able to attend council meetings, they really don't have a voice at the table. Moving into 2 wards gives council gives the a greater representation opportunity. So with 2 wards, there's no reason why you couldn't have 4 councillors living in Tirau being elected to that ward. Vice versa, potentially it could be 4 out of Tokoroa only. But as council determined, at the end of the day, if someone living in Tokoroa wants to vote in the Tirau constituents, they would need to be in that area, making themselves known and making sure that they hold their interests at heart or to heart. So that was really the major reasons and rationale for council proposing to go to two wards. The boundary line, sorry, just on this too, as I mentioned earlier on, does sit on the existing boundary line. We don't need to change that. I will talk a little bit about numbers in terms of representation numbers. There is a formula that we have to abide by, but that boundary line remaining where it does still allows us to work within the numbers that we are required to. At the moment, we're calling these north and south wards. It's not very original, and we would love input into some decent names if we did end up with 2 wards as to what those ward names might be. Community boards. And again, this is different from the status quo. We currently have a Tirau community board. Council is proposing there'll be no community boards under this new proposal. And again, looking at the advantages and disadvantages, and I'll get into more detail of this in a moment, but there are advantages in having a community board, there are disadvantages. Is a business association or a ratepayers association or some other interest group a better alignment, or a number of different groups a better alignment? When you look at the relationships we have with Pride of Mataru, when I say we council, in terms of contracted outcomes that they deliver, Pride of Mataru, the Overdale Centre, Tokoroa Council of Social Services and so on, there's a number of different groups who are actually delivering really well in terms of our community on behalf of council as contracted. So that's another opportunity. So looking at the specifics around the advantages and disadvantages that were considered by council, a community board, it is a democratic process. So the members of that community board are elected by the Tirau ward, therefore they have that direct democratic responsibility. They are paid positions. It's not a lot of money. It's not as much as they deserve, but it is a paid position. Therefore, there is some accountability for those members. They represent and advocate for the community. Obviously, that's what they've been elected to do. And like anyone else, they can submit on annual plans, long-term plans, and the likes as well. The disadvantages that council considered when looking at community boards, though, is that they are bound by red tape legislation. They have no teeth. They can't actually make decisions. All they can do is make recommendations to council. So when you look at that, at the end of the day, yes, they can advocate. Yes, they can come up with ideas, but it's still up to council to accept those ideas. They are advisory only. They are constrained by standing orders. They can't just run off and have meetings left, right, and centre because of their requirements. If they are making decisions, all meetings have to be notified. They are public meetings as well, unless they determine that they want to hold them in public excluded, and then there has to be a valid reason for that. So again, not a lot of teeth, and there is a $13,000 cost. That money could potentially be invested elsewhere into the Tirau community, maybe for better effect potentially. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of the community board. And of course, the opposite applies for a business or a community group. We went that way. So there is no red tape. At the end of the day, those interest groups can get together whenever they like. They can make decisions. They can go out and leverage their opportunity funding from other bodies or whatever. They're not bound by that legislative requirement. As we said before, $13,000 potentially could go into other groups and help foster them for the KPIs that council's looking to or seeking. They could still represent and advocate for the community. Having said that, there is the potential it could be an advocacy for a community of interest rather than the wider community. So that's something else. That was the downsides. They can set their own rules. They have the ability to work with us. Again, they can submit on annual plans. And again, Tokoroa Community Board is limited to 4 people. These groups can be as big as they like, so they can engage as many people as they want to. So again, pros and cons both ways. And they were the issues that council considered, and in the end determined that they believed that Tokoroa potentially would be better off without a community board. Just need to talk a little bit now about the 10% rule. What this means is that at the end of the day, you can't have plus or minus 10% of the population being represented by a council greater than those numbers. So just to explain that, if you look at the total population of our district, 23,200, we have 10 councillors, that's 2,320 people per councillor. So when we look at wards, there has to be that 10% buffer, if you like, or would it be within that 10% buffer, either plus or minus. So when we start looking at the proposal at the moment, which is 2 wards and 10 councillors, that works. We're plus or minus 10% in terms of the numbers. 3 wards and 10 councillors, as per the status quo, again that works obviously. 2 wards and 8 councillors, again that works. Where we get into trouble potentially is if, based on submissions, and council changes its proposal and ends up with 8 elected officials, then 3 wards wouldn't work because we wouldn't have that ratio. We wouldn't meet that ratio. So that is a consideration when we move forward and we look at the total makeup of what we end up arriving at. Is that clear? So from here, the process. Consultation closes on Monday the 8th of June, so we're in this process right now. Hearings and deliberations on the 25th of June. We, based on those deliberations, and they're obviously influenced by the submissions, council will then come up with a final decision that may be the same as what they've proposed, it may be different. If, regardless of which way it is, they will then come out and flag what that proposal is. That happens on the 9th of July. The public notice goes out on the 15th of July of what that proposal is. There is then an opportunity to appeal. So ratepayers can say, hey, we don't agree with this, and if they don't agree with it, they have the right to go to the local government commission. There's no appeals, it goes through, the proposal stands, but let's say if there is an appeal, then that's put in the hands of the local government commission. As we know, the local government commission can determine any structure they like. They will not just look at the local area, that's certainly a consideration, but it does open the debate around the greater community or the greater region as well. So we really don't know what may happen if we end up in that situation. So where to from here? We want you to make submissions. So it's important that we do get engagement from the community. We want to make sure that we do hear what your thoughts are. There are the consultation documents which I've left on your seats. Fill out the forms on the back of that document. If you want to go online and visit the website, then just follow the instructions as to do an electronic submission. So that's the end of the presentation. Is there any questions? Peter?
In Tokoroa, it seems to me, the community board works quite well. It does. This is my own opinion. It works quite well. They have a councillor who may be approachable, I mean, not sometimes, but that's, going, what Neil said in Tokoroa was going down to 8 councillors. How about, this is just me thinking, reducing the numbers of councillors by 2 and have a community board instead. That would, number one, work, like if you have a community board in Tokoroa,